World being this safe, why fighting was so important?
It's the highest level of those emotions that you feel: anxiety, excitement, sadness, happiness. And you're walking in, your family's watching, the fans are watching, but so scared that you will get beaten up in front of your family and friends. And all those feelings at the same time. Should I run away? Should I stay in? And you're closing the cage and you're seeing an opponent in front of you who has been training 3 months with a team behind him, specifically learning you to destroy you. And that competition, there's nothing like it. And what is that human being that walks into that cage with all that feelings? That is the next level of mind, body, strength that we're looking at. So I don't think there's anything that I could ever learn, no books, no education system that's there that could teach me and make me mold into a man that a fighter can make me.
Welcome to World's Local Podcast. Thank you so much to reply. I'm actually nervous now.
No, I watch your podcast. I see the cuts and everything else,
Wow.
and it's exciting. You know, I mean, what you do for the upcoming generations for the business side, it's fantastic. And I think so what we do as sports is also a business. I thought it's very important that we have that conversation. I mean, the entertainment side is there,
Yeah.
the athlete side is there, but it's also a business, and that's one of the biggest booming business right now in the world.
I didn't know that you were watching me. That's amazing. That's a good thing to hear. Let's start from the personal story, if you don't mind. Let's start from the beginning. Like Mohammed Shahid, 17-year-old, dropping out of school. I'm sure you might have got these questions again and again, but I seriously want to know. Dropping out of school, beating all the odds. I'm sure you're coming from the Indian origin, so I would know, like, what kind of challenges and blockages you might have had from your parents and uncles and aunts and I don't know what. Could you walk us through with that from that journey?
Yeah, definitely. I think I always keep saying that when you tell stories, what we see in the movies usually are the stories of the Rocky stories. You know, it's more like someone who had nothing in life, and then you had to find your way and become something in life. So which is a fantastic story. It's always inspiring. But and then there's also a bunch of stories about people who are really rich and they are doing much more innovative things, which is also inspiring to see what they can do as people that is coming from a rich life. But then what we really miss is the stories of the middle class families, and it's not really spoken a lot. I don't know, is it because you don't have that kind of lifestyle that you come from nothing, and that might not be inspiring enough? But the challenge is that someone who's a middle class family, who's coming from a middle class family, I think that is something that we don't speak a lot about. And my story is one of those where, like you mentioned, the challenges are slightly different, where you are not having the freedom to do whatever you want, and that's one of the things I give as a gift for people who come from nothing. So the Rocky stories are where the world is yours. I mean, definitely you don't have the resources, but the world is yours to decide what you want to do. But coming from a middle class family, till the age you are a teenager, there's already a plan set for you, whether it's through education, it's already set.
Your
So
future is already set by your parents.
absolutely. At least the idea and the direction that you're going towards, it's already set. And so when you reach the age of 13, 14, 15, that's when you start looking at things and you're like, maybe I want to be something, I have a dream and I want to achieve something else. And by the time when you make that decision or dream for it, you're looking back and saying that I'm not equipped for that at the age of 15 or 16 to achieve that. So for me, I'm not recommending to drop out of school, but definitely
Don't try this at home.
exactly. So for me, that was the only choice, because I knew that I had to get every single time that I have, every hour, every second that I have, to learn as much as I work towards it. So executing and working towards is one thing, but as you are doing that, you have to learn as well. And for me, my dream was becoming a mixed martial art fighter. I love the sports industry, I love the martial art industry, and I thought there's so much that could be done through that. So that was a dream, and for me to achieve that, I started training since I was 12, 13, really into martial arts, like really dedicating myself into it. But by the time I was 16, 17, I realized that you can't achieve the highest level of the sport unless you spend every hour, every second of your time. And I had to make the call.
I heard that you did the 3 sessions or 5 sessions per day.
Yes, it was very unhealthy, but I used to do a lot of training, because your mind is working in a different direction. You're seeing the rest of the world. You're seeing some of the biggest athletes around the world, and you're thinking how to catch up to them. So the only simple answer is work twice as hard. And the only option is to work twice as hard. And working twice as hard, sometimes you learn that it's not very healthy. In the martial arts or sports world, you have to make sure that you recover as well. So, yes, I had to drop out. I had to get all the time I can. But also, the most important thing was me dropping out was also a fight with me and myself. And one of the things was once I dropped out, I realized that there's nothing else I can do. My back's against the wall. This is what I have to do, and you better be successful at what you do.
But then, I'm sure like for several years you're just training and not even earning out of it. I mean, parents don't understand fighters. I'm sorry, I mean, comedians, like even comedians, they are really wise people. They
Yeah,
learn a lot, and, the comedy comes out like really strike your heart. Like these are artists, like anything artistry,
true,
it's a bit, I'm sure for the first few years, and I've also heard that MMA business is like just past 45 or 50 years, right?
true.
So
Much less though.
so I don't know how did you make them convince, or you just fought them out and then just went,
Yeah.
and you said that you're going to do it, and but have you ever, okay, my question is, have you ever felt that one day that why am I doing this stuff?
Oh, absolutely. And that feeling is always going to come into your mind. And we always say that. I've said this in one of my early days when I was competing. I've said this in one of the interviews, and at that time when I said it, it was from my heart. But later on, when I think about it, I was like, that was what I was going through. Which I always say that you have the. The good and the bad and the ugly and everything inside you. So it's almost like the Satan, the God, and the soul. It's all in you, and you're fighting with that every day. And that Satan is always going to be telling you when you wake up in the morning that it's 4 a.m. You want to go for a run, take shower in a cold shower, and go for a run, and you don't want to do it. You don't want to wake up, and that's going to talk to you all the time. So yes, it's you have to have that fight with yourself. Dropping out of school is one of those things to fight against myself to make sure that you have no option. You have to do it. You don't expect the family or anybody else to understand, especially at a time when you had no mixed martial art in this part of the world.
In what year did you prove them wrong?
I always felt like every step of the way when I started my own gym in Tubli, which is what we were talking about before the
Yeah.
podcast. When I started my gym in Tubli, that was the way that I had to make a living. I have to train as well. But at the same time, it was also for me to make sure that I can chase my dreams better. So I had to make a revenue and use that revenue to reinvest in myself. So every step of the way, it was a little bit more confidence that the family and everybody around started getting. But I've never really bothered on that. I always say that once you want to have a dream to be something in life, you want to be a champion. Most of the time, you look selfish, and you better be loving yourself so much to go and achieve that dream. And if you don't have that, and if you let everything else around you get involved, it's really going to be more difficult to achieve your dream. But you have to do it.
Was that first MMA gym of Bahrain, or like back then?
Yes, Bahrain MMA was the first MMA gym of Bahrain, and there was really not no MMA gyms. I mean, definitely, I think martial arts in itself is a big subject. It's almost like saying esports, and then you're like,
Okay.
which one? FIFA, 2K, what are we talking about? But esports is so martial arts is a big industry,
Yeah.
and people who do different kinds of martial arts, they're always somehow associated with mixed martial art because the core of learning a martial arts, if you go and try to learn taekwondo or any other martial arts, your goal is to be able to defend yourself, to
Okay.
be at the highest level of fitness, to be a good fighter, whatever your goals might be. But it's all associated with that ultimate goal of being the best you can be. So when we started MMA, we are very specific on the sports side. I think when you look at it from that perspective, definitely mixed martial art as a sport, that was the first ever gym.
World being this safe, why fighting was so important? Like learning, like as a common man like me, why fighting is important?
And I say that because we have heard so much of philosophies that's out there, and from some of the greatest philosophers. One of the things I always say is that I learned my philosophy, I've learned my business, and I've learned to be a man, and everything else, my ethics, my values, everything through fighting. And yes, there are martial arts values, but what you learn from fighting and to be a fighter is different. What does that mean? That's the question that you asked. What does that mean? How do you do that? It's very simple. When you put yourself to the highest level of test, um, And when you have emotions, we've all felt sad, we've all felt happiness,
Yeah.
we've all felt different emotions. But when you have all the 75 to 80 emotions come at one time, how do you deal with it?
That's mad.
It's difficult, right? And we sometimes find it difficult to deal with one emotion.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's yeah.
but when you have all of it come at the same time, you realize that, hold on, I have to be out of my body. And you have to pull yourself out of your body, and you have to play every emotion, because every emotion is important. If you're jealous, people say that's a bad thing. No, it's not a bad thing. It's something that you're proving yourself that,
It's your
that
inner self.
I want something.
Yeah.
So it is an indication that you want something, and that's why you're jealous. But if you take it negatively, it's different. So everything you need a little bit. When we go to a fight, people say, I'm not scared of fighting. Then you're stupid. You better be scared of going inside and having another trained athlete in front of you, and you're going to go for a fight. You better have those every emotion that you need, but one should not be more than the other. You should have a balance for everything. So what is that balance that you have to bring in? And once you understand that balance day in, day out, you step out of your body, you let that, yes, the soul let the body perform, and you are playing the orchestra of all the feelings, and you get that perfect blend of it to bring them inside. And it doesn't work all the time. Sometimes anxiety and excitement takes over, sometimes fear takes over, sometimes happiness takes over, sometimes confidence takes over. So there's so many things, but keep finding that right balance. And that exercise, find me another field in life that will give you that training, and that's only fighting. I think there's no sport or no activity in life like going into a cage to fight, and that experience is
Oh
once
yeah,
in
that's
something
yeah.
else. You know,
I've never seen it, and but yeah, the thing which you see in the screens. I mean, wow, that's
that walkout is something special. I always say that even when I used to have the gym, I used to tell everybody that's trained with me that I'm not trying to sell you to be fighters. That's not what I'm trying to do. But I would always recommend that once in your life, if you are young and you're at that age, if you get to make that walk into any competition, doesn't have to be mixed martial art, but any competition, it's an experience, and if that is a mixed martial art competition, it's the highest level of those emotions that you feel: anxiety, excitement, sadness, happiness. And you're walking in, your family's watching, the fans are watching, but you're also scared that you will get beaten up in front of your family and
insane.
friends, and all those feelings at the same time. Should I run away? Should I stay in? And you're closing the cage, and you're seeing an opponent in front of you who has been training 3 months with a team behind him, specifically learning you to destroy you. And that competition, there's nothing like it. And what is that human being that walks into that cage with all that feelings? That is the next level of mind body strength that we're looking at. So I don't think there's anything that I could ever learn, no books, no education system that's there that could teach me and make me mold into a man that a fighter can make me. And that is, again, that is what I've learned from mixed martial arts, and that's a lifestyle I've put forward.
Wow, I mean, the thing which you said in the cage, like when I take that in business world, I mean, when you get in losses, when you're not excelling, when you're not able to pay bills, that feels the exact situation. But here, this is physical.
Yeah. It's
you
it's,
know,
it's combination, right? It's physical, mental, everything is put into test. So when people watch a fight and they're just seeing competition, but when you are in there and you are actually in a position where you realize that your opponent is really, really good, everything that you learned and tried and you're trying to attempt is not working. Mike Tyson was one of the biggest examples when he was trained from a very young age like a machine to do exactly a system that will help you win, and it worked for him for a very long time. The day it did not work, he didn't know how to escape from it. So that's why for me, natural talent is amazing, but hard work is something else.
that's the main thing, the discipline, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Brave, I have did my research. Like, I don't know if I did good, if I didn't do good, but I've been watching your YouTube and things like that. But I've understand, like, I've seen your interviews like 6 years back and even like few months back. It is consistent on one thing. The vision didn't change. Looks like Brave was not founded by His Highness Sheikh Khalid bin Hamad al Khalifa just for business. Looks like it is so fighter focused. Why? Why that was so important?
Because one of the things that I was telling you about the business side of sports as well, I think it's very important that you have to look at the complete ecosystem of an industry. We can't just focus on fighters. We can't just focus on business. We can't just focus on anything individual. It has to be a collective approach. And in mixed martial art, you have to understand mixed martial art as an industry is the fastest growing sport in the world. It is the most global sport in the world.
Okay.
If you look at the business side, there's never been a valuation growth like mixed martial art organizations. We're talking about a company that was bought for 1.2 million and sold for 4.2 billion
Wow.
in 15 years' time, the largest turnover in the history of sports
This is which year?
organizations. 1990, I think it was 2000 when they bought it, and 2016 is when they sold it.
Wow.
But now it's gone IPO at 12 billion. The same company. So that's the story of UFC's equity story, right?
Wow.
And when you look at the equity story of UFC, you're realizing that we have 100-year-old football clubs that's still at $4 billion or $3.5 billion. We're talking about the top of the top. So mixed martial art has all those values as a sport, as a business. I'm just mentioning as a business.
Okay.
But then you're looking at it, and we have so many issues where fighters are not getting paid enough, treated well. The industry is not growing in certain part of the world. Some organizations are making revenue, some are not. When we started this idea of bringing Brave Combat Federation, the vision of His Highness was to build a team, and that's when we had the likes of Khabib, Islam, Frankie Edgar, Hamza, a group of elite fighters from each different tiers. We're talking about the top tier who's competing at the UFC. We had the tier that was fighting professional but not at the top level.
Okay.
And then we had athletes who are just turning professional for the first time, doing the debut pro fights. And the most important one was the amateurs, who are the up and coming talents at the amateur level. And we tried to create a system of giving them the best resources possible, like football athletes, cricket athletes, or any other athletes that's out there in other sports. And the results was fantastic. I mean, we don't have to talk about what happened to Khabib, Islam, and these are names that is one of the icons of sports today, if not only mixed martial art. And then we saw the likes of Hamza and Eldar,
Yeah.
who was already professional, and today some of the biggest names in sport. And then we looked at the guys who are turning professional, and those individuals, like Shorty Torres was one of those athletes who was just turning pro. He became a double division champion in US organization. He is one of the top contenders in Brave Combat Federation. But then the beauty was the amateurs, where Bahrain becomes the number one team in the world ranking.
So garden of fighters, like the fighters grow here.
Absolutely. But that national team to break the record for Bahrain to be ranked in the top ranking of the annual ranking of any sports, we've never had that before. MMA was the first one to bring Bahrain at the top ranking in a sports international federation ranking. So that was fantastic. But the real question was, how can we do that for 20,000, 2 million people that's out there? We saw that the system is flawed in mixed martial art because the young sports, it's only 30 to 45 year, maybe 40, 35 to 40-year-old sport, but it's growing so fast. But somebody has to sit back and look at it and say that we need to change this industry. We need to reform this industry. I think that would be a better word to say. And how can we reform this industry where it's globalized to every part of the world? And that was the birth of Brave Combat Federation. And that's why the name Brave, because somebody has to be brave enough to come into the industry and do things that the industry itself does not understand. It's
Brave
like
and bold, to be honest.
it's like me coming to a sport like football or cricket and trying to change the system, and the sport doesn't understand. Then how do you expect everybody else to understand? So we had to take that step and move forward. So the vision has never changed. And this happened when we came to know, it was a very simple question from His Highness where he asked, if these athletes are performing at the highest level, how can we do that for the rest of the world? And that was a very important thing. And then for me at that point was about letting our best athletes compete in the biggest organizations in the world. But then we realized very quickly that you're in a system where you're hoping that some promoter like myself today will sit and feel sympathy towards an athlete and get him the opportunity. It's sports. If you have the talent, you should be reaching wherever you want to reach. Talent should be the only variable. Your marketability, your good looks, or your nationality, nothing should matter. And that was the time we thought we have to make a difference. And His Highness Sheikh Khalid was, either we take the athletes to the biggest organizations, or we let the world athletes, the best athletes from around the world, be in an organization that can make that difference for them. And today, 8 years down the line, you're seeing those results. Not me saying it, it's actual data where you have the biggest superstars in mixed martial art are all, majority of them, at least 70 to 80% have come from Brave Combat Federation. Whether you look at Gamza Chimaev, Ilya Tapuria, Benoit Santoni, Luana Pinheiro, name them from whichever countries, they all come from Brave.
Wow. It's also interesting to know that I think, unlike Brave, UFC, for them, they keep the fighters as long as they are filling the arena. I heard something similar to it. Uh, Even an undefeated uh, fighter was not renewed. Why is that? I mean, it's not about the fight, it's not about their skill, it's also about their what looks or their what do you call fame. All these things matter for a federation to keep a fighter.
I mean, it's sports business. In sports business, in the end of the day, fans matter. You know, fans are important. So, and I don't mind that. I don't mean that you shouldn't be presentable. I don't mean that you shouldn't have the marketing opportunities. If you promote yourself as a brand, let that be any business.
Okay.
That is an important thing, and I don't mind that. Whether it's football, cricket, you always see one character becomes a brand, one athlete becomes a brand, and it could be simply from the way he celebrates or the headband that he wears that makes him unique, so you differentiate yourself from everybody else. So there are these key things that makes you into a brand, and you have fans identifying you easier. All that is great. My problem with mixed martial art industry and what we're trying to tackle in Brave Combat Federation is that mixed martial art industry is in the event business. They're not in the sports business. Meaning, if you can have Lionel Messi in football, who I've never listened to his interview, and the reason why is he doesn't speak English, so I don't speak Spanish. So so I can't listen to his interviews, and that's that for me.
Still, he has like I don't know how many
He's
hundreds of millions of followers on.
And he's considered to be the best, one of the best footballers in the world. If not the best, one of the best footballers in the world. And the reason why he was able to reach there is talent. If you keep performing, doesn't matter your language, it doesn't matter your looks, doesn't matter your fashion. If you should be able to reach there, yes. Once you're there, you could do much more. Maybe you could start becoming a better brand. You could start communicating better. You can articulate your messages better. All that is a different media training, and everything is important. But you could still reach there, regardless, if you keep winning and if you keep performing. In mixed martial art, absolutely similar to what you said right now. That's absolutely right. That it's about how many people you can fill the seats with, and that's the goal. But that's the event business. So for me, I say that if you have two of the best fighters in the world compete against each other, whether it's Conor McGregor or Khabib fighting against each other, or Shakira or Beyonce fighting each other, it doesn't make any difference, really. I mean, it doesn't matter, because you just want them to compete where the interests of the fans are there, and that's what killed boxing as a sport. And today the influencers have taken over and reviving the sport, and I wouldn't say that's a bad
Tyson thing.
Sure, that's
on, I don't know how many
unbelievable.
$1 billion.
You're seeing a 28-year-old kid fighting a 60-year-old man, and it's selling. So that's an event business. That's where mixed martial art will go in 50 years if you continue to stick the sport into the industry of event business. What we're trying to do is, our vision is very clear. We're trying to change the industry from an event business to a sports business. And the sports business is what we see in football, cricket, everything else. And every business model has its flaws, but we still have a business model that is sports related. And media, entertainment, everything is part of sports. Not that sports is part of entertainment, and that's the difference in MMA industry. MMA industry, entertainment comes first, and that sports comes second. So it doesn't matter if you're the best talent. And you mentioned about undefeated athletes not being renewed, and that is the case of our fighter who's going to make the biggest return to Brave Combat Federation. It's Mohammed Mokaev. He is.
I actually talked about him.
yeah. He's 7-0. He's undefeated. Undefeated is one thing, but he's 7-0, which in UFC, which means that he has the highest winning streak currently in his weight division in UFC. So even the champion is not 7-0, and that itself shows how big of a quality of fighter he is. He's one of the best guys we've seen. He's undefeated. I've never tasted defeat in his life from the amateur careers. I think combined together, his amateur and pro, he must be somewhere between 23 to 25-0 or 27-0, something crazy numbers when you look at it. And all that 27 fights, he's been undefeated. So he's never tasted defeat in his life. And that's the quality of the fighter we're talking about, where the world has identified it. You see the biggest medias in the world, whether it's MMA or mainstream, following Mohammed Mokaev. And that's for a reason why they're following. They're seeing a talent at the age of 23.
He's also from Khabib's land, right?
They're from Dagestan. Yes, they're all from Dagestan. So he's from Dagestan, living in UK since a very young age. and what a fantastic talent. And we're excited to show the world that what he's capable of doing as a fighter is one thing that the whole world knows. I mean, we don't have to show much. Every fight is always exciting because anything could happen in mixed martial art fight. However good you are, it's just a matter of 1 second, one punch, and that, you just didn't see it. You blinked your eyes, and that's it. You're waking up from a sleep, and then everything's over. So that is always going to be there, but there's no question about his talent. But what I think he's going to do now is to show that he's going to make that difference with Brave together. We're going to make that difference that the MMA industry needs.
Okay.
Why do fighters at flyweight division have to be in this position today, where they're getting released, where they're not being renewed? And in the end of the day, everything goes back to the fighters' problems, And with Mokaev, he's going to be an example to showcase that we can make a difference. We can let the whole world know that there is competition to find out who's the best fighter, and Brave is going to fully back him on that.
Amazing. So, talking about also the celebrity fights which came in the boxing, have any celebrities approached Brave that, let's do this? We want to have a mixed martial art celebrity fight, let's say, because I'm sure that will fill the arena. Even the non-MMA watchers would come and watch, right?
Sure. No, definitely. I think that we've had a lot of communications with influencers that have come up and say that the influencers agencies that have come up and say that we want to collaborate with Brave. I mean, Brave has been collaborating with multiple organizations at the international level and with co-promotions in the MMA world. So we did have a lot of people coming and asking us about it, and I don't have a problem with it. I think that is a business of its own, and that's an event business. So tomorrow, if I can have one of our Brave events where we can do a fantastic concert, why not? If you look at the history of Brave events, even just in Bahrain, you must have seen every event. We've had concerts, we've had shows, we've had entertainment, and we love it. We
This is along with the matches, right?
yeah. So we'd love to do that. We love to give opportunity to people to be on a global stage at Bahraini talents, but also get international talents and the best Bahraini talents as well to do some concerts. But all that is the entertainment side. So influencers, I would love to work with them, and we are not neglecting the idea. We are in contact with.
Do you think we can see something sooner?
Definitely, I think 2025 we've been working on some things internationally, more than Middle East, but we're looking at something to do internationally with celebrities. But that's going to be on the event side.
Okay.
We don't want that to be
That won't be the main match.
we don't want that to be the core of the business. Our business values will stay. Whether the entertainment is there, celebrities is there, concerts are there, the vision and the direction we are going, that will never get distracted.
Brave has been now to 35 countries. You're chasing one country after the other. I mean, these countries which you're going, you see qualified MMA fighters there. How do you approach countries? How do you choose which country to go on? And why is that so important for you as
One thing is easy. We're in the mixed martial art industry, so life becomes easier for us. So we don't have to really see which is an MMA market. I'm not talking from the business perspective. I'm talking from the sports perspective. You don't have to see, because every country you think of, name a country, think of it, MMA exists, MMA fighters exist, MMA gyms exist. You might even have a lot of amateur and some even professional competitions that you never heard of. And that's something that is very surprising that you don't see in any other sports, because every sports have some countries that the sport is not famous in or not big in, including football. For a very long time, the North American market was not big with football. Soccer, football, it was not big. But so similar to cricket, it's in the Commonwealth countries, but you grow. But MMA was one sport organically, it grew everywhere. So it was easier for us to pick the country. But again, at a macro level, our goal was to go to each country and convince the country what they have in their hand as mixed martial art industry. It's a gold mine that's there. That's Bitcoin at $1. That's iPhone being built when Nokia was the king. This is the time we're talking about what mixed martial art is in the sports industry today. And we're going to each country and making them identify the government of the country, the private sector of the country, the sports industry, to make them, give them enlighten them of this opportunity that's there for mixed martial art. And we are here to help. We're not here to take, we're here to help and build that industry for you, the sports economy through mixed martial art for you, similar to what we have done here in Bahrain, in the Middle East, and many other countries. So for us, that's the goal. But as the industry grows up, the best part is the money, the investors, the private sectors, the revenues, everything starts growing. You actually create an economy yourself. And that's the history of MMA, if you really think about it. When 1993 mixed martial art was a sport and UFC was out there, mainstream media, everybody in the sports industry they all pushed the sport back thinking it's too brutal. They didn't understand it, but they still understood boxing, they understood judo, they understood wrestling because they were all in the Olympics, but they didn't understand how to look at a sport when they all come together. And that I think that's the system we were trying to create, at the global ecosystem. And in that system, when you think about it now, you could actually have a Lionel Messi, regardless of nationality, color, creed, nothing. It's just a matter of, if you have the talent, you have the amateur system and national ecosystem, go into the amateur level, be at the world championship level at the amateur side, cross into the professional side through Brave, and be part of the actual sports business structure. And I think that is what we're trying to create.
Was the sports business model different from the event business model which you're trying to employ? And what is there any examples of a sports business model? Is it something similar to IPL or
Yes, I think
NFL? I don't know.
absolutely. So if you look at NFL, IPL, everything has a sports structure. The sports is over. It's all. It's the governing side of the sports. So when you look at FIFA, you look at BCCI, ICC, in cricket side, we're talking about. So they have an international structure, governing body structure, and if you don't have a governing body structure, you have no idea what could happen in the sports. I mean, we've heard about sports betting, we've heard about so many
Yeah.
different things that happens in sports, match fixing, whatever it is. And sports is so much close to the hearts of the fans and the people that there's so much way to make money. And if it's not governed or regulated, it could go into any direction. It could get really, really ugly really quickly. And I think when you have a sports that has all that structure set in, whether it's a governing body, but at the same time it is part of the development of your youth. Sports should contribute to a lot of things. Sports diplomacy is one of the most important things today in bringing coexistence. Sports marketing and sports media, I was just telling you when you're off record, which I mean, well, what I say is the biggest media platforms in the world today. There is no competition to Cristiano Ronaldo's YouTube, to anybody else's YouTube growth. If you think about today, the recent news. But if you look at brands like these athletes, they're much more bigger brands than movie stars or singers. And with all due respect, but I think it's because the values that the young generation grasp and get motivated, it's slightly different.
The consumption is on that side and not this side.
Sure, and I would like a movie actor for a movie, or a character that person played, and fantastic for that, or for a song that somebody sang. But I like an athlete for, he's a hero, I want to be like him, I want to train like him, I want to look like him.
There's no acting in MMA.
Absolutely, and in sports, really, generally, right? So, and again, when you look at sports and you look at MMA is one step there, because the sport requires that kind of physical and mental torture, I would say, to be that athlete. It's not easy to be an MMA fighter.
Can I stop you there? Did you any of your fighters had any brand deals so far, or is that market there, or is it like very slow and low? They don't consider MMA fighters as kind of celebrities. I mean, we know Khabib, we know Conor, but like these fighters, the locally which you nurture.
You think about it. I mean, the biggest superstars in many countries are now combat sports athletes. I mean, their level of branding is next level. I mean, you look at Ilia Topuria, for example. Ilia Topuria is the featherweight champion of UFC, and I think in Spain today, the biggest talk for the young generation is Jude Bellingham from Real Madrid and Ilia Topuria. But when you have the Real Madrid match going on, he's coming and kicking the ball. Sergio Ramos is walking out with him to the cage, to the weigh-ins, and those kind of things shows that these guys are taking the next level. I mean, MMA is giving that platform for athletes to have 20 more Muhammad Alis in each country. I mean, the star building power of MMA is unbelievable. You go to each country, you go to India and you see MMA athletes. It's not a sport that is still recognized in India. When you look at the athletes and their numbers, social media numbers, and what media effect they have, it's different. But at the same time, one of the key things that helps us be different in MMA athletes is because they do have the somehow the opportunity to get away with speaking their heart out compared to other athletes. So because if you look at a player from Real Madrid or Barcelona or any other club, they have to look at the club's side of things, so they have to look at what my media obligations are, what I cannot and can do. But when you look at MMA athletes, they're all individuals. You're contracted with an organization, but the organization wants you to speak as well. So that has been a big part of it. So you look at the Muhammad Ali's, famous quotes and everything else. It's because he was able to talk. But if he was in football or
yeah.
cricket, in the press conference, you're being so diplomatic, and you're sitting and you're like, yes, I like it, amazing, it's great, and fantastic, love it, and hopefully we'll win. Oh, and I'm not overconfident. But then Muhammad Ali comes and says, float like a butterfly, stink like a bee, and he's going out saying that it's unbelievable, and people love it,
That still runs in social media.
Yeah, he says handcuff, lightning, and throw thunder in jail. It's crazy. He says, I'm so mean, I make medicine sick. I mean, when you, I mean, those are the statements where you're looking and you're like, I want to be that. I want to be that confident. But then he also tells you how to be that confident.